Hello folks, welcome to another instalment of the GC People Leaders series. Now in this interview, I'm talking with Annette Andrews. Annette's career history is she's performed a variety of different HR roles, starting out at Ford Motor Company, then going into Lloyds Banking Group, and then working in the insurance sector, eventually making her way up to the Chief People Officer at Lloyds of London. And then recently, during the coronavirus lockdown, she's used her time to set up her own independent coaching and consulting business. So Annette, welcome. Good to see you. So your profile, it's a very interesting set of energies. So as viewers can see on the screen, strategist space, the implementer space, the polisher space, with some game changer energies and some playmaker energies as well. So kind of starting really with the basics. You've had a successful career in the HR space across all these different industries and large companies. What does your GC Index profile tell us about what's underpinned your success going through your career?
So first of all, thank you for doing this. It was a fascinating insight into me that I hadn't really thought about. But also, as you discovered, I'm a reflector, so I've thought about it quite a bit since. So things that really resonated. So if you can see the screen, I've got an 8 for the strategist. That really resonated in that I love understanding the business strategy, and really developing the people strategy to complement that, to look at how people, business, customers can all be enhanced. So that absolutely resonated. The score of 8, I understand, is quite high. And the thing that I'm always very, very aware of when I create a strategy, I'm not just thinking about the strategy for this step, I'm thinking about the future down the road. And I sometimes have to reel myself back a bit because that might be too much for people. So I'll come on to that in a moment. The other thing that really resonated was the implementer and how it complements the strategist. I love designing something and then delivering it. And I love seeing it through to conclusion. And I get a huge amount of pride. And it's not just pride about me delivering it. It's about being part of a team and a business, seeing that through to delivery. The polisher score was interesting. An 8, very insightful. And we've had quite a long debate about this, John, haven't we? In terms of, I absolutely set a very high standard for myself. That's personally and professionally, by the way. I'll work my little socks off to achieve something and make sure it's always really, hopefully, gold standard. But what I've had to help myself with over time, and ironically coach other people about now, is you don't always need to do gold standard. You can sometimes silver and bronze is okay. And I need to think about that from my own personal resilience and energy levels as well. But equally, I'm always thinking about how something can be improved, enhanced. And for me, it's not just about designing and delivering something, it's about creating a legacy. And I think that links to a future to be proud of comment. I really like to create something that people are going to maybe talk about, use, copy, replace, reflect on in the future, and not just a tick box done, delivered. Interesting from a playmaker perspective. I'll be honest, my initial reaction was, I'm a bit disappointed with that. I thought I did more than that. I thought that was a sort of a natural ability. But what I've really learned from talking to you all about this is that that's something, it's still great, and I dip into it possibly as and when I need to use it and maximize it. And the game changer, actually I think that was really fair, because I know that sometimes I like to build on others' transformative ideas and then create the strategy, delivery, etc. But sometimes I like to either come up with my own transformation piece, really game changer, or build on others. So it all made sense. And I would say to you, my career across the different sectors, different roles and remit, I've really built this up over time. And I really now, the resonating with the strategist who loves the business, who then implements it and tries to leave a lifelong legacy, it really resonated through.
That makes sense. And one of the things I think that was interesting about your package of energies was that you, as you just talked us through, you have that complex set of energies that all work together in quite subtle and nuanced ways to allow you to deliver what you deliver. So actually it'd be interesting, Annette, how would you, or how in the past have you gone about designing a people strategy using your impact? Because I know that's something that you've had to do in the past as part of your career. So how have all these different energies work together to allow you to do that?
It's fascinating. So I now recognise in myself, I think I mentioned, I love designing and developing strategy. So for me, it absolutely starts with understanding the business, and is the business trying to transform the future? So I'm building on that idea, or I'm adding to it as well. So whatever I design from a strategy perspective is all about complementing this game changer transformation. I am very aware now in myself, and I've learned that quite often what I am looking to develop from a people strategy might be 2 or 3 steps too far down the road for some people. Even the game changer thinking may be too far. And what do I mean by that? They can't visualize it. It might be a bit scary for how the world's going to change or the amount of change. Or they literally just can only think 1 step and not 2 or 3 steps. And that's okay. So what I've learned over time is I have to take people on a journey with me. And quite often that's individually. So I think when you and I spoke, this is where my playmaker can come in, where I literally and go and work with individuals or smaller groups to, 1, help them on that journey, but 2, to help them maybe develop their thinking. But most importantly, get, I call it carrots. What's their thoughts, views, ideas, so that this can resonate with them, so they can own it, be proud of it, and feel part of it rather than done to going forward. And then I will literally, when I go back and deliver a 2nd draft, 3rd draft of a strategy to an executive committee, I will have spoken to each person. They will see their little paw prints all over it, and I want them to have a buy-in to it, and hopefully I've helped them down the journey as well. But the big lesson learned for me is, as I said to you, have to reel back. My initial big strategy might be too game changing, and I might reel it back. So it might be version 2 or 3. The bit that I then love to do is I always think of designing, developing and delivering a strategy as a game of chess. You've got to think about which piece you're going to move first, what the knock-on effects might be to the other pieces, but actually it might not play out the way you're planning, your strategy, and you might have to alter your plan. So I will talk to my teams or business about, which piece do we need to play next, or if you think about the jigsaw analogy, which piece the jigsaw has to go down first to be able to build the rest of the picture. And I've learned the agility and the ability to adapt and go with the flow to help take people with you. And quite often that will mean 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And you're not doing great bounding steps forward, you're edging forward. And that's okay. And I have to counsel myself on this, because ultimately you're going to achieve the goal that you set out for with the strategy.
That makes sense.
So I can see there in myself, if you like, thanks to this, how I've brought into play the game changer, the strategist, the implementer, and then doing a bit of my playmaking that we talked about.
Yeah, it's really, and on that front, actually, it's really fascinating, because it sounds like, and this is where your energies all come together, that you can take a group of stakeholders, fellow employees, whoever, who need to be involved in the design and delivery of a strategy. And your strategist energy kicks in the sense that you can understand the relationships between those individuals and their competing desires or motivations. And you can understand that strategically and then use that to inform your playmaking in some way.
No, that's absolutely true. I know I'm highly empathetic. I always have been, and I think that goes all the way back to childhood. But I can literally read people, read rooms, read body language, and I will adapt not only myself to that, but I will preempt that in the strategy and how I'm talking people through it. I will adapt my approach with different people to help them on that journey. But I will also know what are the key things that people need to see and own in a document. Now, there are pros and cons to that. In that I've learned it's almost like people need to put it in themselves, otherwise they can feel done to or manipulated if you preempt too much. And that's a really subtle art. But again, one that you develop with time, but also you have to adapt with as well. I think the other thing I'd observe about myself, I talked about this, very high expectations of myself, but equally very high expectations of what we, the business team, deliver. And I don't just mean in terms of quality. I mean, I like it to be world-class, sector leading, something new and transformative about it, which goes back to the game changer, but it leaves a legacy. So it might be the best family practice or policy in the sector. It might be a whole new way of thinking about reward or employment or working arrangements. It's just got to be something with a difference that's game changing and legacy lasting as well.
I think this is very interesting, and I think our listeners will be picking up on this, that this is the power of your particular package of energies, because you've got that sense of that creative drive, but you've also got that pragmatic element, which is very strong because you have those energies in the strategist and implementer space. But there's also that quality piece, which is that, as you said, you want to leave a legacy that you can be proud of. But I sense as well, you're also ensuring that you can be proud of what you did to leave that legacy, that there's a great degree of polishing your own practice so that the results can be the best they can be.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. I'm very hard on myself. I am harder on myself than anyone else will ever be. And I'm always, maybe this is linked to the polishing actually, I'm always looking, what could I have done more of? What could I have done differently? What could I have added to that? And I've very got a build mindset, which is, we could take it to the next level or the next level. So I do give myself a harder time than anyone else. I'm also very aware that potentially that means I could stretch myself too thin, energy and emotional wise, because I'm strategizing, I'm implementing, I'm polishing, I'm thinking about different, I'm orchestrating. So again, learnt with time that I have to manage my own energies. Being highly empathetic is hard work because you feel the energy and you have to work the energy. Does that answer your question?
It does. It makes sense. And I think what this is exposing is a theme that we're beginning to see in these conversations, which is that what your colleagues and your clients see from you as a leader is powerful, but what they may not see is the working out that goes on to get to that point. And what I sense is that, as you just summed it up really beautifully there, is all those energies are part of quite a complex cognitive process that goes on in your mind that allows you to deliver the results that you've delivered as a leader. But I mean, how visible do you think that is in general for people?
I don't think it's visible at all. It's a
Yeah,
really good point of observation. And I'm not, my nature is I don't shout out
yeah.
about what I do or how I do it. I just get on and do it.
Mm.
So no one will have any idea about the amount of thought, the strategic thinking. My team will more directly as we plan through the chess, which piece next.
Yeah.
They will to a degree. I'm way more open about how much reflection I do, but also how much of a hard time I'll give myself and how much I stretch myself. I'm way more open than I ever used to be. I used to do that in, I think, silence, but I think you're spot on, and you've made me, I'm not sure what to do about it, but you've made me reflect on how do I share more about that different thinking, the different aspects that are going on, but in a way that is appropriate and judged for the audience and the room.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's a good thought, isn't it? Actually, how do all of us? Because I mean, to some extent, we all have our hidden working out that we do, and to what extent can we involve others in that process? Yeah, so that's a good thought, actually. I'm conscious of the time, Annette, but I've got to ask you, with your motivations and your energies being what they are, where do you see the future for remote working?
Oh, love
This is
it.
very much your area.
Yeah. So I'll be honest with you. I'm going to touch on each of my areas now. The game changer in me says we don't need offices anymore. It's a really high fixed cost. We might need a little office, but actually, for most of us, remote working, we know it works now. That's a game changer. It's transformed, or it should have transformed, the way we think about how we do our work. But it's also, lockdown's been hard, but actually, we need to be aware that this is probably the way forward. This is the world that we're going to have to live in. So we need to be flexible, adaptable. But we've also, a benefit that's come out of it is we've reconnected with our families, etc., and our values perhaps about what's important. But also we're way more focused on our physical and mental well-being than we ever were. And people are just not prepared to go back to the way we were or commute to the same degree. So preempting that, my vision, this is my game changer, honestly, the cities will be more about accommodation, flats in the city, what you want in there. And it reminds me a bit of New York, actually, where I used to work. You'll have some offices there. You'll have more like WeWorks, etc. But you'll have gyms. Food will be incredibly important. Healthcare will be incredibly important. But it will be the minority that are going into an office. It will be more about communal social living, food and well-being, which means what a fabulous opportunity to rethink our businesses. So I anticipate very small offices. We need to rethink the contracting from an employment perspective, the reward structure, well-being, healthcare's whizzed up the agenda. People are going to want to make sure they have that work-life balance, that family connection. So I then immediately go into what does that mean for, and that's reflected in our customers, by the way, as well, that we're all providing services and products to. So I anticipate that means I would be going into a strategy. We can completely rethink the people strategy for an organisation in support of that. We can then start implementing that, by the way, sooner than later, because your talent is not going to stay with you if you aren't thinking about your policies, your rewards, just how you recruit and retain people. They will be moving to the organisation that do think that way. So start thinking about it now. So I'm then into implementation mode. What does it look like? And I'm doing that with a startup at the moment. Blank sheet of paper. What a fabulous opportunity to rethink the employment relationship. And then you go into, well, how can we make this really, really different and shine as an example to the world about how things can be done differently, and let other people copy us. There's nothing better than being copied for the different things you're doing.
That's fantastic, Annette. And I think that's a wonderful summation of what we've been talking about, which is all your your energies, your blend of creativity, pragmatism coming together there. And I'm sure that as the world goes through the next stages with this big change, that we will find all those things out. If only everybody was ahead of the game. I sense we could talk all day, but for the benefit of our listeners, we've got to draw it to a close. So I just want to say thank you for your time, Annette. It's been really fascinating talking with you, and thank you so much for taking the time out to talk with us and our listeners.
Oh, and thank you for the profile and the insights into me. It's been fascinating. Thank you.
You're welcome.